Welcome to Josh Anderson Art. Continuing in my series of daily drawings of cartoons that were influential on me and my brother as we were growing up. Today is the 90s version of the X-Men. Of course, our favorite character was Wolverine. He is the coolest character. So what I'm doing in this series is trying to, on my lunch break mostly, just do a quick sketch of one of the characters I choose and then ink it and then color it with color pencil. And then I do a snap it and put it on my Instagram for everyone to look at. So I am confined by time, and I'm also doing this at work, and so I don't have my best art tools from home. But time is going to be my biggest limitation on these. And part of this is just to keep me drawing every day, to kind of challenge myself to keep drawing. And I would like to eventually grow my YouTube channel, get more subscribers and viewers. If I can get a lot more subscribers, then maybe I can remonetize my channel after they change their rules. I was starting to rack up some money in my AdSense account, and then they changed their rules and it all started over. Thanks a lot, YouTube. But anyway, maybe eventually I'd like it to be like a how-to video series, drawing how-to. I apologize for the poor camera and sound. It's the only thing I have right now is this really cheap little webcam. But I'll go ahead and try that just to get in practice. Maybe if you're an aspiring artist, I can give you some tips and help you along what I've learned. I've been drawing since I was a little kid, since I could hold a pencil basically. Took all art classes in high school, and then majored in graphic design in college. But within that degree, there was several fine arts classes I took, including gesture sketching and painting classes. So I've learned a lot from my teachers over those years. And so basically when you're doing a drawing like this, what you want to do is give yourself a real loose sketch of the character. I'm getting a little too tight already up here, but really we want to place him on the page. We want to fit him. See, I've already gotten in too much of a rush on this one, and I'm really pushing the bottom of the page here. It would look a lot better if he was centered more, but at least he's going to fit. I'm just really loose, kind of gets your self warmed up. And it's almost like molding, like this really loose pencil sketch. It's the more you do it, the more you get kind of used to it, and you can really build a structure, build like a kind of a skeleton to start putting detail on. And it's nice and loose, so like you can fit all the parts of his body proportionally where they go, because that's one of the hardest things when you're trying to draw, is getting all the proportions right and the parts of the character where they should be. And so we're just using basic scribbly like circles and stuff to try to, his fist is over here, and it's like after you do like that and kind of feel out where like the farthest extremity would be, like one of his claws. And if it feels wrong, like it's so loose right now, you can just push it to where it needs to be. And when I draw, I'm always looking at space relationships to get these things right. Like this little piece of shoulder is about that long, and the angle of that shoulder pad, or whatever you call that thing. And so we're looking at this, the negative space of this area, shoulder pad and his mask, but we're also looking at the positive space of the mask. And so if we get that shape right, and then we get the relation of these shapes right, we should be pretty close to right on. I personally am not a fan of tracing it. I feel like it's, I don't know, taking a good part of the drawing from the artist and sort of saying something is yours that's not totally yours. I feel like it's just my personal belief. And so a lot of times, even if these do look like they're traced, they're not. Just looking at a reference photo and sketching. See this, the wing on this boot, we notice it goes to the top of his thigh in this shot. Comes down behind the calf. And drawing through, this is a good technique to know too. In the actual finished drawing, you don't see this part of the calf because it's all covered in the black, but to get this angle right all the way down to his ankle, we're going to draw through that whether we see it or not in the end. Unfortunately, the screenshot I have kind of cuts off the foot here because the ground is about here. So I'm just going to have to sort of make up how his foot looks out of my head right here. I might want to quickly look up another picture of Wolverine because I'm not exactly sure what his toes look like. And we're looking for the animated Wolverine from the 90s. Okay, so they're just pointed off. Typical superhero boots. Actually, even though I told you I was looking at all these space relationships, somehow I did get his crotch area a little wider than it is in this scene. So that's going to cause some little problems for us. Like in the scene, his calf actually disappears here. So I'm going to have to sort of make up like how his heel might look there. And to the discerning eye, people who know this character really well, you might be able to tell some of the proportions are off. And I would say, like, normally, like, I mean, it depends on how much time you're putting into a sketch and what it's used for. Like if you're commissioned and it's supposed to be something really good, or I don't know, if you're even, I don't know, if you just need to make it more accurate. I mean, I could go back and erase and redo his legs, but for all intents and purposes of my series here, I just don't have the time. It looks like I got his knee a little short too, but that's okay. So once you've got that basic outline of where he fits on the page, then we'll go back over all these. I usually just kind of start at the top and just start tightening it and actually give a rough line. It doesn't have to be perfect right now, but a rough line of where that's going to end up as a final. Because the final is when we come back with the fine liner or the whatever inking we've chosen to do. I just want to give myself my exact lines to come in ink. Now with these characters, I really tried to find, like, I want them in their best, first of all, most original kind of look or whatever. So I'm not looking, definitely for like this Wolverine, I'm not going to do any of the more current series. Like this is the 90s one. This is the one I remember when I was a teen. And then instead of Googling it, which I could easily do, I try to find what I want to draw from a still in the actual show. Looks like his eyes might be a bit far apart there. That's kind of weird. And the reason for that is a lot of times, like when you Google, or almost all the time, you find a lot of fan art or commercial art of these characters used for different purposes. And it kind of defeats what I'm looking for, which is the most original and authentic. I think that's what I'm really looking for. I want the actual one that I remember and saw in the cartoons when I was a kid. And I don't want some fan art or somebody else's rendition. Like, if I were you, I wouldn't be drawing from my drawing later when I finish this. It's that kind of that principle of a copy of a copy of a copy. Which is kind of funny because these days copiers and printers and stuff have gotten so much better, but back in the day, like copy machines would lose a lot of quality every time you copied something. So you start with your original and then copy that and then copy that copy, then you would lose a lot. And then, of course, copying the copy of the copy, you lose a lot. And so you really want to, for accuracy, you want to always start with the most original possible. So I don't want somebody else's rendition because this is mine and I'm starting from the beginning. And also I'm acknowledging that I have a lot of work to do in my own art. Like, I have loved cartoons for so long and stuff that I kind of neglect doing realistic stuff. And really the basis for most cartoons, especially these older ones, is strong like figure drawing skills from the artists who created these. And I really do think cartoons these days are losing a lot of that. Like your Bob's Burgers, your Rick and Morty, they just like there really are drawings that kids could do easily. I don't know, maybe it's the style, maybe you guys like that, but I personally feel like we're just losing a lot in cartoons. And I'm not saying like all cartoons need to be of the realism that X-Men was. Like, X-Men is obviously based off of comic books, which are always, ironically enough, not comical. They're more for the adventure and the kind of as much realism as you can get from a cartoon or from drawings and stuff. And well, anyway, so like my favorite cartoons were the Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Elmer Fudd, and like these guys like are definitely super loony, obviously, cartoony, squash and stretch type cartoons. But if you look closely, especially like the older ones, they even started to lose it in the later years of the Looney Tunes. But if you look at ones that were produced early around the 40s and stuff, that's my favorite Bugs Bunny. There's a knowledge of the human form you can tell is like a basis for all they do. Like even with Bugs Bunny, his gestures, his hands, the way he walks, everything. You can tell like those artists were very much students of the human form and that plays out in their drawings.
Previously on XMen. Previously on XMen.
Previously. Okay. So I worked my way back down to boot. Get that little wing on the boot there. Kind of meets with the bottom of his thigh. We're just about ready to ink here. Just hang tight. Let's finish off this leg. Yeah, my favorite cartoons are definitely more the animals and funny ones like the Looney Tunes and stuff, but there were a few of these more serious comic book shows that we watched. And it's funny, even after all these years, I still kind of look at these shows that were in the 90s as the newer shows. XMen. Because they were the 90s show. Okay. I think ready to do ink on him. Oh, something I forgot was he has these little spiky elements to his uniform here. Tiger stripes or something. Okay, and if I've forgotten anything, that'll usually show up while I'm inking. Sometimes I forget a line here, an appendage there. Okay. And I mentioned before, I'm using in this series a Papermate Flare, which is actually a really cheap pen. It's just what I happen to have here in my office. And I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the quality or the line quality I can achieve with this pen, because you can really push hard to get thicker lines and lighten up to get lighter lines. So at home I have like really nice brush pens and things like that. Actually, like I've always had a hard time. I'd really like advice on this myself. Is with brush pens, how can you get them to last longer? Maybe I'm just pushing too hard or something on them, but I seem to really dull up that nice fine tip on them very quickly. Can barely get any cartoons done before the pen is done. I'm always experimenting with different pens, and for a while, one of my comic strips is called Carrot and Ruff. It's about a rabbit and a dog. And for a good chunk of those that I inked, I used cartridge type fountain pens. And I really felt like I found my pen, like that's the one I want to always do. But every time I think that, all of a sudden the pen starts acting up on me, and like I can't get a good solid, like clear lines. It clogs. And even when I try to keep it really clean, like an older favorite was just a regular old dip pen, like a pen with a nib and everything. And like that was the beginning of the series. I was using that one and I loved it. And I would try to, every time I was done, I would take a toothbrush and go in the bathroom and wipe off the ends and just kind of scrub it, get all that ink out of there. Maybe I just need to work harder at that. I don't know. It's really hard to keep a pen flowing nicely. Flow is really important. You're pulling these lines, like you can't just run out of ink halfway. It just ruins it. That's one thing I like about these Papermate pens. They seem like they're lasting pretty long. Like they do kind of dull on the end. But it's like I'm able to draw these long flowing lines and not run out of ink. It is a little thick for my taste though, like this ultimate line quality. Just for my basic drawing lines right now, they're a bit thicker than I would like.
Previously on X-Men.
Getting the claws right is really important on Wolverine because it's his thing, his signature power or whatever. Kind of funny the way they have them really long here, and then on that end they're really curved. I'm gonna have to kind of guess right here where his side would be because this frame I have is not very clear. I don't know if they colored it yellow there. If you're an artist, I'd love to hear your comments on what do you draw and what are your techniques, what are your favorite materials, your pens that you use. I've been kind of taking notes on some other vlogs. One I really liked lately is Will Terrell, who is a guy who works on the animation team at WB. And like he'll just go through and do a drawing kind of live like this, but obviously he's got a lot more talent and experience to comment on, but he'll mention pens that he uses and taking notes on that because I want to try these. Some of these other pens that guys use. I also, maybe after I do this series of color pencil colored ones, I'll try a different medium of color. Like I'd like to do one with marker, but markers, like you have to get good ones for that to look good. And a long time ago, I had a pretty good set of Prismacolors, but it's been a long time. Most of them dried up. And actually, I didn't have a lot of colors though. That's what I'm pretty sure Will Terrell uses, Prismacolor markers, and he does these cool, funny little characters that what he does is him and his artist buddies, they go to public places and they sit and people watch, and then they draw these funny kind of caricatures of the people they see. They just sketch them out, and then when he goes to finalize it, he first lays in the marker and colors it, and then puts in his outlines, which is a good kind of technique I learned from him. I haven't actually practiced it yet, but he talked about it and I want to try it. Because I love his finished product. They're just really cool. It's so hard these days with the internet and like Instagram and stuff. On the one hand, it's such a cool way to get seen and like to share art and see other people's stuff. But on the other hand, there's so much out there, and you realize like there are so many great artists out there that it's just mind blowing. Like I feel like I'm at the bottom of the barrel. And when I was growing up in school and stuff, like all the kids used to tell me, "Oh, you're a good drawer. Josh is the best drawer in our school and stuff." And it admittedly went to my head a little bit as a kid. And then like in high school, so that was like in middle or elementary. And then when I got to middle school, there's a few other kids who are the good drawers, so a few of us are. Then in high school, like there's a lot of other good artists, and then when you get to college, like you're just at a new level where you're not even close to the best artist anymore. And then if that was college, once you get online and start seeing like a hashtag of art, and then good grief, like I'm just not even close to, not even in the same game as a lot of artists. But instead of being like kind of discouraged by it, which is easy, it's look at it as inspiration and try to learn like what makes, like when you see a piece of art that you really like, why is it, like what is it that makes that such a great piece? And one of the things I'm learning from lots of other Instagram artists, and also like I have a 2-year-old and we read books all the time, like children's books, and so I'm picking up a lot of art technique from these children's books too. And one of the things that I'm noticing that I need lots of work on is with color. Like I'm not good at any medium of color right now. And with that comes lighting and shading and stuff. And what I'm really jealous of a lot of artists is their ability to depict an atmosphere by the lighting. I mean, you really feel like you're there, and you feel that even time of year, that lighter time of day that they're trying to show in their piece. There's a lot of children's book artists who do that really well. I think probably children's book artists get overlooked a lot in like mainstream, maybe all artists do. But some of those out there are masterful at what they do. I can't name any off the top of my head. I would name them so that you know who I'm talking about, but I don't know their names off the top of my head. But I'll tell you once I see the book, like, that's one. Just recently we had Good Night Construction Site. And that author also does, I think it's called Dream Train. That was the first time I saw that person's work. They're just really good at their lighting and stuff. And like, you know, Good Night Construction Site takes place at the end of the day, so it's sunset. And like all the construction vehicles are getting sleepy, and you just really, I know it works for me to make me sleepy, and the goal is to try to get the 2-year-old to fall asleep, and it's not as effective as it is in getting the adult to fall asleep. Well, the reason for that is the associations of sleep that we know because we're adults that the 2-year-old doesn't understand yet. Like the sun going down and all that. And that like really makes me feel sleepy. Hope you don't mind my rambling. I'm just trying to keep it rolling. When I started these drawings, I thought, oh, nobody's really watching, so I don't need to talk. And then like somebody tuned in on the live feed and they were like, so are you ever going to talk? So I'm trying to practice like talking because video is sort of boring when nobody's talking. I just talk about like why I'm doing these things and how. And, like my goal is to hopefully help other artists or aspiring artists to give them tips and tricks and stuff that I've learned over the years. If you'll take it from me, like I'm not a illustrator or anything, not professionally. I really want to be, but I have been in the graphic design business now for 13 years. There's a lot of overlap in things that you know, knowledge and stuff. I've also just loved cartoons, never quit drawing. Like mostly it's just doodles, but like I am continually drawing on something. Like it's usually my work notes these days, meetings. And it's like one thing I'm realizing in life is like we always have this tendency to think like once I get this or once I have that much money or I'm doing this thing or that, then I can really do what I want or whatever. And you just realize that never happens. Like you never get to that place where you feel fully like ready to do something. And so like if you want to be an artist, you just have to push it into your schedule and make that work. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like this is my lunch break. And right now in life, especially with kids, this is the only time I've been able to find even a little bit of time to draw. Okay, so that's the kind of the basic outlines, like just one weight. And I like to come in, I'll just, for this, I'll just use a Sharpie on the big black areas. I don't want to wear my pen out. And I think the sketchbook's thick enough, I don't need to put a sheet under it. That's a crappy marker. But I don't even know what I have. I remember a long time ago when I was in college, so it was probably around 2000, 2001. I started to notice like characters, cartoons that I like the line quality, but like nobody had defined it for me. I was just kind of seeing it. And realizing that my preferred method all growing up of drawing was ballpoint pen, and just nobody had ever challenged me that until I was in college. I had a teacher tell us ballpoint pens are an inferior drawing instrument, she said, which I mostly agree with, but your head would spin if you'd see what some people can do with ballpoint pens. But I regress. For me and for most of us, we need to branch out and try other tools. And so my attempt in college, when I started noticing line quality and stuff, was to get a thicker line. And so I thought, oh, I'll just use a Sharpie. So I did a lot of cartoons with Sharpie, and even one project I did, like we were supposed to design an annual report in a graphic design class, and to incorporate my love of cartoons, I did a fake annual report for the Cartoon Network. So for that, I had to draw all the lineup at the time, which was like Ed, Ed, and Eddie, and Dexter's Laboratory, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and all these guys. And so I drew them with a Sharpie. And I knew, like, when I got done with it and looked at it, I knew something wasn't quite right. But I couldn't put my finger on it. And, like, I could tell my teacher all day that it was just the style I was going for is why they looked that way. But I knew as well as anyone there was something wasn't quite right about it. And after kind of studying or thinking about it, what I realized is the line quality was all one weight. So when you draw with a Sharpie, it's the same weight all the way around. And so it looks cheap, I guess you'd say. And I'm not, you could probably get Sharpie to do different things, especially if you get a nice new one. Because they do have a nice point on them, but the point goes away fast. And I think when I realized that was when we had a little like introductory lesson in graphic design on Adobe Illustrator. And we were doing a tutorial that taught us how to do what they called sculpted lines. And so sculpted lines is like your graphic art or your vector art mimicking of various line quality line weights that you get when you're inking. Like we do this when we ink old school way with actual ink, just by like the style of the pen and how much weight you put on it and different ways you curve the pen. And you can in Adobe Illustrator, you can sort of fake it with different brushes, different shaped brushes and stuff. But it's always, I mean, no matter what, computer drawings are always going to have a little bit of mechanical feel to them because the computer is doing part of what you normally would have done yourself. So we do sculpted lines by making lines different thicknesses and by kind of by hand going back and actually adding thickness here and there. And I don't know how long it took me to really realize how to do that by hand. All right, so now what I'm going to do is just actually use an older one that's a little worn out. I like to go around and put like a thick line on the outside of the cartoon, and it just gives it a really, this sort of helps with the sculpted line look, but it also, I don't know, it gives it like a finished look. And it does help to close up areas. Like if I were to scan this and want to color it later in the computer, it's way easier to do coloring when all your lines are closed to start with. You can obviously go in there and close it with a brush in Photoshop or whatever, but if they're already closed, it's going to go a lot quicker. I don't know how many times I've gone to colors, like color the sky, and then the whole character turns out blue. When I started this series, like I noticed once I inked them, they've they really look cool this way before I put color in. In some ways, I might be screwing it up coloring it with color pencil. So I decided to start scanning these real quick before I do the color pencil. And that way, I can clean that up a little bit. And I'm going to assemble, when I get done with this, I'm going to assemble a little coloring book for my 2-year-old. All these different cartoon characters. He's going to grow up with a good knowledge of the old school cartoon characters, I'll tell you that. Maybe his dad will be a bit of a curmudgeon when it comes to these newfangled cartoons and their craziness. Adventure Time and crazy stuff like that. Yeah, I actually, I had to recant because I was going off on Adventure Time and things like that because they're just so weird. But honestly, I've never actually watched a whole episode or anything. And just yesterday, I was trying to kind of study how they do their characters for a project I'm working on. And so I watched a little bit of one. Yes, it's very weird. It's nothing like the cartoons I grew up with. But I have to give them one thing. It's a very imaginative, very creative. And imagination and creativity is what drew me to art, really. Being able to bring something into reality on your paper by drawing was what made me fall in love with drawing. Especially in the early 90s when I first came up with my characters, Carrot and Ruff. Carrot's the main character, he's a rabbit. And I did a whole comic book of just his zany adventures, and it's just, there's no real plot, they just do whatever I wanted them to. I was magnetized to that storyline or that drawing just day after day. It's all I could think of. When I was at school, I just wanted to come home and draw on my comic, and all during summer break and spring break, mostly. My brother and I played a lot of Super Nintendo, but mostly what I wanted to do was go draw. And you can ask my best friend, you can ask my brother, that's all I ever wanted to do. And if we were sitting around bored and those guys were like, what do you want to do? I'd be like, let's go draw. And a lot of times they both like drawing too, but they weren't quite as fanatical as I was about it. All right, so I think this is good for an inked sketch. So listen to the theme song, get my colored pencils, and I'll be right back.
Previously on X-Men. Previously on X-Men.
So now that let me double check to make sure that scan actually is there, because once I start coloring, there's no going back. Oh, there is. I could probably go in and Photoshop and take out color, but it would be a pain in the butt. Okay, it's there. So X-Men go. Wolverine, Logan. Okay. So what do I like about some of these more detailed cartoons is they took the time to do some shading, and I think it just adds a lot of depth to the character. I don't have the color palette that I probably should for this, but just realizing that if you, like, the guy is yellow, then just a darker shade of yellow adds a really cool looking shade effect. This one is not quite as good as they have in the frame that I'm drawing from, because they probably mixed, like tinted the color with black. I'm just using like a darker yellow. I actually found a really cool Illustrator tutorial on how to do that, like for logo-y type stuff. And I've been working in Photoshop and Illustrator now for well over a decade, probably more like 15 years or something. I couldn't calculate. And they're both such robust programs. InDesign is too, that like you can do so much in them. But even this many years later, I'm still learning new things to do. And like I've always known about the cut tool, like the little knife tool, but I've never really taken the time to learn how to use it. It just, without trying to get instructions on it, it doesn't quite do what I always think it should do. When I noticed this guy, or I watched this guy's tutorial, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I've been doing this a different way all this time, but it's on how to put in the shades, kind of like I'm doing with him right now. So you would select this area that's going to be yellow, and you click the yellow tool, and bam, he's colored yellow. But what about these areas of shade? See how I'm drawing on his abs right there? And so what I used to do, I think I would only do that in Photoshop. I wouldn't really know how to do it without lots of tediousness. Yeah, Illustrator. And so what I would do is I would just take Magic Wand, select this area, just the only area that you want to be coloring, and then take a brush and just sort of draw it on the area that I wanted it, that's probably a good way to do it in Photoshop. But for Illustrator, how do you do that? And so what he did is like use your selection tool just to select the area you want, and just take that knife and you just draw a cut, and it cuts in part. And so you color the two cut pieces different colors. Wish I had known that a long time ago. Of course, and I'm always looking for ways to use illustrations, to use like vector kind of graphics and stuff in the work I do. I'm a graphic designer for a large church, and every ad that I design, like it's not, I mean, I sort of have clients, which are like the ministries that come to me and ask for things to be designed, like advertised. But I don't like have a paying client coming to me or whatever. And so like, I mean, I kind of just do whatever for all the ads I do. Just whatever I want. Like I can do whatever style, and like they can be very simple. Like, sorry about the noise. Plug your ears. I could be very simple with them, and I could just do text or some photo, really simple. But a lot of times I'll get some time, and then I can actually do an illustration or something for it. And that's super fun for me, because obviously my number one joy is art and drawing. Like just recently it hasn't happened yet, but they had me design an ad for a girls' night, and it's for middle school girls. and they gave me lots of time to work on it. It doesn't even happen until October, but they gave me the assignment like a few weeks ago. Like, yes, I can actually spend some time and think of something. And I think my favorite designs are for kids, for younger kids. And that would probably tie into my love of cartoons and stuff. And so for that, I was like, cool. I think what I'll do is sort of find out what kind of shows middle school girls are into and then do a cartoon that looks sort of like that. So that was really fun. I think I sort of based some characters off of Kim Possible. And what else? I think just some random like CGI cartoons and stuff. Oh, one was Teen Titans, I think. That was fun. It was just fun to try different styles. Like I like that because now what I'm going to do, because they have a corresponding boys' night, which is a Nerf. It's always a Nerf battle. And so this one I have the idea to, and we like the ministries always have a chance to veto my ideas. Of course, it's whatever they want, but they usually like it. But my idea for this one is to do some, cartoon boys shooting Nerf guns at each other. And so I was looking around just trying to see what are the kids into these days. What are them youngins into? I am getting older and a little more out of the loop on things. I'll admit it. So like the top thing I found was Rick and Morty, which I actually think is not it's not really for kids, is it? It's too dark. Maybe. So I'm trying to do a character basically, or loosely based on like Rick and Morty style. Then I tried one that was Bob's Burgers, which another one. I'm pretty sure that show is not for kids. Like I've never watched it, but isn't it like an adult's cartoon probably? Then I tried one sort of loosely based on Star versus the Forces of Evil. Which I actually had never heard of the show before that, so I don't even know what it's about. So it's fun to just try those different character styles, especially. I did one based on Adventure Time too. Those are super easy to do because characters have just gotten beyond simplistic. Like I said, I really think they're characters that any like little kid could draw. Those Adventure Time characters are just weird little circles, and their arms are as long as they want them to be, and they stretch and stuff. Crazy. See this right here, what I'm doing, like following these lines of light. I mean, I think that just does amazing things for making the character look three-dimensional, look like they're really there and kind of popping out at you. And I mean, it's easy for me to look at where they put all the color and just copy what they do. But what I want to do is I want to get better at being able to know where shadows usually will fall, and remembering to do reflected light, which is something I did learn in school, but it's amazing how it's not really what you would think, or the lines of color don't go where you would think they go a lot of times, especially like bright light on the dark side of a character. You don't usually think of that, but you don't realize that reflected light and how that really makes the character, like it just looks so realistic when you do that. Reflected light. Let's see, there's one more shade of blue, and I don't have a lighter one, so I'm going to try just really lightly. Yeah. Can really tell what's going on there. It's a little bit greener blue than I wanted to. But for this series, like I said, I'm just using cheap Crayola color pencils that I happen to have here. So it is what it is for now. This drawing's taking a long time. I need to hurry. It's gone a little bit over lunch break. Shh. That's the thing about these more realistic shows like XMen, even what I mean by realistic is more detailed, like not Looney Tunesy style, but like so Transformers, G.I. Joe, XMen, and just really any kind of comic superhero show. They take a bit longer because they're more complicated characters. You turn your speakers down. So far, we don't have any live watchers today. And I'm not so full of myself to think that anybody's ever going to watch these, but just in case you are, talking as if you are. Because I do acknowledge that my camera is super bad, which makes it probably not fun to watch. And the sound goes along with that too. It's a horrible sounding camera. I gotta make do with what I have. Okay, I think that's all the blue. Let's do his belt real quick. A lot of these drawings have been super hard to find a good screenshot to go off of. This one, actually, I thought it was going to be harder than it was because it did take me a while to go, though, because I wanted Wolverine to be in his typical costume and stuff, and it's actually, he shows up a lot in the show. He's got his mask off. Colors are going to differ quite a bit. That's okay. Mute your speakers. Sorry about that. I do wish I could muffle that sound. Tell me what your favorite cartoons are. Or who is your favorite X-Men character?
Previously on X-Men.
All right, I'm gonna call that done. What do you think? Yeah, y'all. Oh, sorry.